This is Extra Points, a Pop Warner podcast. I'm your host, Tim Glaze. We're sharing some of the most compelling stories in sports. On this episode, we chat with one of the most dominant offensive linemen the game has ever seen, a 12-time Pro Bowler, 9-time All-Pro, and one of the fastest, most athletic guards in NFL history. Here's Hall of Famer Randall McDaniel. Randall, it's great to talk to you today. I look at your stats, Pro Bowls, All-Pros, and it's all very interesting. We'll get into the football part here in a minute, but I wanted to start with what has been referred to sometimes as your second career, and what you're doing in the classroom. And just before you start, Pop Warner, we have a minimum standard for GPA, and you have to have a minimum performance to be able to play Pop Warner. And then we also celebrate our highest achieving scholar athletes for what they do in the classroom. So what you're doing in the classroom and your heart for students, it does transfer very well to Pop Warner as an organization. Just want to kind of learn a little bit more about what you're doing post-retirement.
Okay. Well, God, it's funny because I'm retired again from being in the elementary schools. But no, you're talking about what I did after football I was already volunteering and subbing in the elementary school in the district that I was in. And just to let the kids know who played sports, that wanted them to get the picture that education is important. It's going to give you those opportunities that you may never have gotten. And if you are going to play sports, you still got to have the education piece. That way you can stay eligible, help your team, be a true teammate, and do the things that can keep you out there in the field with them. So yeah, for 20 years, I worked in the Robbinsdale School District. Like I said, and I go to plenty of graduations still to this day. I still see a lot of the young men and women that I work with along the way that are now young adults. But like I said, I had people in my life who were educators who made a big difference in my life. So that's what I was trying to do for myself, to make a difference in some young person's life along the way. And I think I did okay.
You started this while you were still with the Vikings, and you also did something at ASU as well.
So my degree was actually physical education. But when I got to the Vikings, I think a young person, Nancy Benz, was a teacher in the Robbinsdale district, and she coordinated our training camps. She basically said, you need to be volunteering at my school doing what you're going to do when football ends. So in 1994, during the off seasons, I would show up in her classroom. 8 o'clock in the morning when school started, leave when we put the kids on the bus, and basically learn how things are going to be done in a school system. Never stepped foot in the phys ed department. And she got me to go get my sub license, my provisional license along the way. And it just stuck. I retired. When I retired, I did my speech from the school that I volunteered at and subbed at. And we had lunch after the press conference. And then at 1 o'clock, I was subbing in another classroom right after I retired. And so I started the next career right away. But it's been rewarding, like I said. I went back and got my post back in education, but ended up taking a basic skills instructor, para job. And I did that for 20 years, and now I've been retired now to going on 3 years. But I still keep in touch with all the schools. I come in and do reading and stuff in the classroom. But it's just to show the kids how important education is. And with me coming into the classroom or being at the schools, it just proves that point about how we should value education.
You had mentioned earlier you had some influence in your life growing up that may have also influenced your desire to get into the classroom, what you did in the classroom. Were there anybody from your youth, anyone in particular, that really made a difference on you?
I was just the big difference makers in my life. I would say this was Mrs. Pyle, my third grade teacher. I never got to tell her what she did for me because she passed away when I was a high schooler. The second person who got to be a part of everything was Mr. Fulton. He was the athletic director, assistant principal at the high school. Came over and met me in 8th grade and introduced himself and said he was going to keep track of the young man. He wanted to get to know the young man, not the athlete. and pointed out that football could take me places, get me the education, and basically get me out of the town of Avondale that I lived in. Me basically growing up on the other side of the tracks. He pointed those things out, and it was an easy choice when I got inducted into the Hall of Fame who was going to introduce me when I got in. Which was like that. He was that big difference maker in my life, and I think because of him and Mrs. Pyle along the way, it pushed me to be in the education to see if I can do just a little bit of what they did for kids and youth along the way. And like I said, I'm still hanging around doing what I can.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned that he wanted to know the person, not the athlete. And I guess from our coaches, any youth coach here, you're developing men or young women, depending on the sport, not necessarily for just success on the field, but off the field as well. So, do you find that it was easy to connect those dots to what you were doing on the field as a young athlete to success that you would have off the field?
Yeah, I mean, I always joke with people that football and sports was easy for me. But classroom work was always difficult. But it took those people along the way to point out all the hard work you put in to play your sport. Just give me half of that for the classroom. And that will make a big difference. And then I realized that, the sports and this education both have a carryover that way. I mean, sports, you get knocked down, you learn how to get back up. I mean, if you're struggling in school, you learn how to go ask for help or get the people who can help you improve on what you're doing. But no, there's a lot of carryover along the way.
And you played a lot of sports. I know, from my understanding, you got started a little late in football, freshman year, but you played basketball and baseball growing up. I think you started in track and field as well. So you're known for being an athletic player. Did all those sports help you really develop as an athlete?
It actually did, because everything had a little crossover. I mean, I would start the season out, like I said, you play in football at the start. And so then you go from football to basketball. So you're running up and down the court, your endurance is there. And then you would go from basketball to baseball or track and field. And I always laugh because everybody assumes that I was always a lineman. And I tell people, no, I was running track and field. And they go, what'd you do, shot this? And I go, yeah. And I also ran the 100, 200, and anchored a 4x100. And, lost the 100 meters in the state championship because my shoe came off. So, but I know all the sports have crossover. I mean, it's one of my big pet peeves that I have, that kids today now specialize in this one sport, not realizing, I mean, basketball helped me with my footwork. So when I played offensive line, you're moving side to side in that little box, same as basketball when you're guarding somebody or you're trying to get into position for defense. There's a lot of crossover, and I wish more kids would play all those sports and not decide that when they're 10 years old, they're going to be locked into that one sport.
Yeah, the crossovers between sports, definitely. We at Pop Warner, we really want kids to play multiple sports. We see a lot of athletes, particularly at the NFL level, they played multiple sports. But one thing that I found very interesting in you, and I've seen this in some of the other people we've talked to, is there's usually a turning point, or there's a decision along the way that kind of changes everything. And for you, what I've read is your athleticism was initially used as a tight end, and at some point you had to make this transition to lineman. What was the mindset for you to actually make that change, knowing that historically it's not, doesn't seem from an outside as an athletic position, and you're free to tell me it is. I mean, I'm kind of looking for a response there, but you definitely brought athleticism to it. But changing from tight end to guard, or lineman, was that a big change for you?
For myself, no. I mean, I'll give you a little more background on me. Growing up, I just love competition. I love playing sports. I wanted to be the best at it that I could be. If someone was better than me, then I would go work harder to be as good as them or get past them. So when that opportunity, where I had an opportunity to move from tight end to guard, and like I said, it was an open tryout weekend where they were looking for someone just to play guard. And I didn't think I was getting the first shake at tight end at that point, being the young man that I was. I just went to the coach and said, is it a fair opportunity if I do this? And he said, yes. My girlfriend and now wife, Marianne, thought I was giving up on my dream to catch the ball and be in the spotlight. But in the end, it was what I always wanted to do. I just wanted to play. I wanted to be part of the team. I wanted to contribute. And so I made the switch, practiced 8 days during the bye week, and they told me I was going to start coming out of the bye week. And for me, I never looked back. I go, I'm going to get an opportunity to play and help my team. And never looked back from that point.
Yeah, you had mentioned the spotlight, and that's, and I don't know. I mean, I grew up in the '80s, and I remember tracking stats, but people weren't really stat hungry today as they are today with fantasy sports and all that stuff. So, from a lineman's perspective, like you would have to, I'm assuming, learn how to revel in other people's success on a stat line. You played in front of a lot of good quarterbacks, a lot of good running backs, and like they can't have the success they've had without you on the line or without that unit on the line. So how do you, like, as a lineman, how do you measure your own success?
I mean, you kind of measure it. I mean, how your teammates are doing. Running back gets 100 yards, and like you said, he couldn't have done it without the guys up front. Receiver has a great day. Quarterback has a great day. I will say this: as linemen, we do remind those guys, without us, nothing happens. I mean, and my line coach from college, offensive coordinator, always said that our team is only as good as our offensive line. So, I mean, the accolades come from how well they do. And like I said, it's we have a blast up front. I felt like as linemen, we actually control what's going to go on with those running backs, and we remind them, you take care of us, we'll take care of you. Don't make us send a reminder to you during this game. So, but it's again, I'll go back. It's all about the team winning. It's about the team doing well. And as linemen, we're just the guys that bring our lunch pail to work. We do our job, and that's what's most important, is that the team's going to do well.
I've always heard that the linemen have a unique bond on the team, a very special place being on the line. It's like, what do you remember about that bond between your other linemen?
You know, it's funny because they call it the herd mentality. I mean, the 10 or 11 of us, we're always together. We're always doing all the stuff together. And what I remember most, or what I like about it to this day, is that every lineman that I played with in the pros and in my college days, we still all get together. You know, if I'm in Pittsburgh, I'm calling Kalis up because we were teammates in college, but we were teammates in the pros. Zimmerman played in Oregon, but we became teammates with the Vikings. So get to see him all the time. Loudermilk's in Ohio. He stays right down. He's in Carrollton, Ohio, so he's close to Canton. So I get to see him meet every year. The whole thing about it was it's being in the locker room every day, hanging out with each other. Linemen we also had our own little meeting spot, our own private spot. So the equipment room was ours with the Vikings. We played cards back there. We ate back there. No one was allowed to come back there unless we gave them permission to join us. But it was just a tight knit group. And like I said, to this day, we're still the same way.
Yeah, when I told people I was talking to you today, one thing I was surprised at is most people wanted me to ask you about a certain player, and it wasn't an opponent. And I've heard this from a couple of people. People want to know, or like I've been asked to ask you about John Randall, going against him every day in practice. So it's like it's practice, right? We're talking about practice. But the question is like that teammate in terms of how teammates can make each other better. So there's two questions here. Did Randall make you better, and did you make him better?
I think we made each other better. From the day that he stepped on the practice field, I remember Zimmerman complaining about this young kid out there running full speed every play, no give up, and going, Jesus, Randall, you need to get out here and shut him up. And I go, hey, that's your problem. Then he moves inside. And for 10 years, Johnny and I went against each other. And a lot of people used to hate that he was always full speed, with pads on, with no pads on, walk through. He was always 100% go. And the only thing I ever said to Johnny about that attitude was, you can't bull rush me when we have no pads on. I go, if you bull rush me, then I'm going to do something to take care of that. I go, other than that, do whatever you want, because I know it's going to make me better. It's going to make you better. And we did every day. We went against each other in live drills. Guys, and I didn't realize this till later, all the D linemen and offensive linemen used to wait for that period where we were going to be going against each other. And we just had to go. We went, and I could never let him win because I didn't want him to know how good. I didn't want to hear the trash talk because Johnny was the same in practice that he was on game day. And he would trash talk and do all that in practice. So I never wanted to hear that coming from him toward me. So I said, I got to shut him down. The one time that he did get by me, I made him come back and take another rep. And I stopped him on the second rep, but he didn't realize how close he was to getting by me again. And like I said, until I retired, the day that I retired, I called him up and told him, hey, I just want to thank you for everything you did for me. I go, you made the game for me easier when I played against other people, because I would say it to people when I played against them. I go, you're not John Randall. I go, so do you know what I'm going to do to you today? Because you're not John Randall. And it just made life so much easier playing the game. But nah, I tell him that today, that I go, man, I love going against you because you just made me much better. You made me look for things that I normally wouldn't have worked on. But yeah, he pushed me. He did push me.
So you had you were basically competing at practice, competing in games, and yet you managed to start the majority of your game. You have 202 straight games in the NFL, 39 in college. People talk about your strength, your quickness, your athleticism, but how did you remain durable to have the career you had?
I mean, I would knock on wood, thank the good Lord above. I mean, I've always been that way. You talk about school, not missing anything. I went from kindergarten to 12th grade, and when I graduated, without missing a day of school. I did the same in college. Once I got in there, I mean, as they say for linemen, or that mentality, if you were nicked up, hurt, had a bump or bruise, I always had that mentality, if I can stand up and walk, I can still play. And so that's the attitude I carried along the way. I mean, I missed the one game in the pros. Kind of kicked myself still to this day. I had never had a knee injury, so I didn't know what to expect from it. And then after 1 week missing, I realized, you know what, I can still play. I'm standing up, I can play. I can ignore the pain and I can get through this again. So, and like I said, my mom and dad, the way they raised me, basically goes back to that. If you say you're going to do a job, you do the job. So if that means you're supposed to be there every day, then you show up and do what you're supposed to. And you deal with the stuff afterwards if something's hurt or bumped or bruised.
You had one of the things being on the line that you changed your stance a few times, or you changed your stance one big time to continue to play, right?
Yeah.
So, like, you know, when it comes to stances, and this is a Pop Warner issue, when it comes to the 3-point stance, 2-point stance, you know, Pop Warner made a decision a few years ago to minimize the use of the 3-point stance and take it away out of the game for the younger age levels, and then just force them in a 2-point stance. But I'm just curious, and I asked Anthony Munoz this as well. He was the second podcast interview we did, and it was just kind of curious about, like, do you have a position on, like, proper stances, the variety of stances, and when they're most appropriate for development of the athlete?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I go back and forth watching all the games yesterday. I'm a traditional get down in your 3-point and learn to work everything from a balanced stance there. If you're having a run play and you're in a 2-point stance and as a lineman, you need to root that guy out of there, you're starting up high and now you're trying to get down low and root that guy out. And low man wins all the time. So you're blocking a guy who's in a 3-point stance who's going to get to your chest. And now it's I call them stalemates. If a lineman blocks a guy, he doesn't move him off the line and both of you are stuck there, we lost as a lineman. So the running back now has to make that cut behind the line of scrimmage instead of 2 yards in front. I understand why at young ages you want, you go to the 3-point stance, you're keeping the head, the concussions and all that out of there. It's just my own personal opinion. that as a lineman, you really don't learn to play offensive line and learn the technique that you should learn when you're starting from a 2-point stance.
As the game, like, I'm guessing you were part of the evolution of the game, bringing some more quickness and athleticism to the offensive line. But in your time in the game, and even viewing the game after in retirement, how have you seen the game overall evolve, particularly with the offensive line?
You get me in trouble. There's still very good players playing. Like I said, I'm a stickler for doing things the right way, your proper technique, hand placement, footwork. I mean, the guys are bigger, faster, stronger, like you say. But again, I'm a technician on how you do your hand placement and your footwork. And it drives me nuts that the guys are, like you said, they're in a 2-point stance when it's a 3rd and short, something critical, and they're going to do it from a 2-point stance. And everybody wonders why they didn't get the first down. I would rather see. I think like I said, the lines are still doing it, and there's some lines that are great, but I still would like to see them get down there and work their technique, do the right thing. Like I said, it drives me nuts. Yeah, I go to practices and watch guys, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, I wouldn't call that a win or success when you. Let me say this: we were always taught to block through the guy, not to the guy. And I see more block to the guy, not blocking through the guy. I mean, whenever I block somebody, I had a point 5 yards behind him that I wanted to get to. So when I hit a man, I was going to get him to that point back there. That way, the running back could make the cut 2-3 yards down the field off of me. It's a different mentality, and everybody says that. I mean, the guys that played before me were like, "Oh, those guys are horrible. They're not doing what they need to do." And here I am now, retired, looking at the guys playing now, going, "Yeah, they're not doing the little things." But the thing is, offensive line play is still offensive line play, and so yeah, I wish they'll get back down there a little bit and go back to the traditional ways, because it would make it so much easier for them.
You set me up for my next question. Hopefully this is one you like more than the one I just asked. But just to give some context, you spent some time as a fullback. So you ran the ball. But I'm actually thinking about that 3rd and short. And I live in Eagles country. Pop Warner's based in Eagles country. So, like, I'm just thinking about the tush push. And, like, where would you love to play with the tush push era? Like,
I mean, here's the thing people forget. We used to have the quarterback sneak where all linemen ran a wedge onto the center, and it was literally who's going to impose whose will over who. And they used to do it all the time. Every team had one. I loved it. I love the Eagles and what they do. I mean, the D-line, they can get down there and get low and try to stop it. Your job is to stop it. Yeah, I mean, I loved it when we did the short yardage goal line, and I loved it even more when I played fullback, because I knew my linemen were going to wedge it in there tight and hit people. I knew the linebacker had to take me on when I came to be the lead blocker, and I knew we were going to get the first down every time we did it, because, I mean, when a linebacker, and you know how it works, the linebacker has to take on that lead block, that fullback. He can't jump around, or the running back drops in and scores, or he gets the first down. And I would look right at the linebackers on that, knowing that my line was going to do the job up front, and let the guy know, we're getting the first down. We're going to get this. You can't avoid me. And, being a lineman weighing 270 at that time and running a 4.5 40, I knew what I was going to do to them.
So you're still.
I'm big time for the tush push.
You retired in Minnesota. Are you still active with the team at all?
I go out and do some stuff. Yeah. When they ask me to come out, I'm there. But a lot of it, for all those years that I was in the school system, they find me more around the schools than they do around the football field.
Is it also, is there any advantage if you're in Minnesota and you have ex-teammates come back for a game, you can always catch up with them?
Oh, easily. Yeah.
Are you close to the guys you played with?
All the guys that's like I said, about all the guys. I would say when I got inducted into the Hall of Fame, I called up every offensive lineman I ever played with and gave them the invite to be there. And then it went from all the linemen first to the running backs. and then I gave a general thing out to guys, the receivers, and the quarterbacks and stuff. But I wanted to make sure I had my linemen there. And then I was fortunate that my original line coach, John Michaels, was able to be there. Then my line coach from college was also able to be there. And then I think Coach Burns was there still, who I started with. So, but yeah, as far as the teammates, I had all the people there. I mean, the night before the speech, all 10 linemen that we played together in the Vikings, we were sitting at a private room, and we were up until 3 a.m, just catching up, seeing how your family's doing, and your kids are doing, and that's how it is now to this day still.
And what's one story that always gets shared?
Oh God, I don't know if I can say some story that gets shared.
You can't pick one, or you can't share the story.
It's hard to pick one because there's so many. I would say this: it's just great when we all get together because we pick up right where we left off. The ribbing, the giving each other, shit all the time. It comes right back right away. But in the end, it's like the friendship and the bond that we form. I mean, that's the beauty of sport. And I know that's like for kids. It brings people together who would never cross over and be together. I mean, I played with guys Tim Irwin from Tennessee. He played with Tennessee. Loudermilk, Ohio. Kalis, he was from Paradise Valley, North Phoenix area. Guys that would never, ever come together. And the only thing that we did was because of the sport that we played. And it broke down all those barriers where you learn about those guys from other places and you realize we're really all the same. And so that's the beauty of what sports has done and being with those guys and catching up.
Right. Then kind of a similar question. Let's just pose a scenario to you. And I'm curious if I know the answer to this question, but you spend a lot of time in the school system with kids that never saw you play. If a kid comes up to you and says, and you're trying to give him an idea of who Randall McDaniel, the football player, was, what play? Is there one play that you would show that kid that just captures everything about you as a player? I think I know what the answer is, but I'm curious here.
There is a play. A lot of the kids, like you said, because I started volunteering early when I was still playing, so those kids knew what I could do. It was the last 4 years that I was working with the kids. I would always tell the kids, I'm the best athlete here at this school. And, I never said I was great I just said I was pretty good at playing football. A guy that played football was pretty good. And then finally one of the kids they were doing their reports and they were sitting in the media center. And this one kid, he Googled me. And I could see on his face that he kept looking at the screen. He kept looking at me in the media center. And I finally walked over and I go, did you look me up? And he goes, yeah, Mr. McDaniel. I go, what do you think? He goes, you never said you were that good. And I go, yeah. I go, I told you I was the best athlete here. But if I told the kids to look at one play, and I did pull it up for a kid one time, because he was like, well, if I played against you today, Mr. McDaniel, I'd crush you. And so I went to the Monday night game clip of Singletary and I on a short yardage play, and I pulled it up and I go, watch this, because that's what I would do to you if you and I ever played together. And he watched me run through on that play, and he looks back at me again. I go, yeah. I go, that is how I played. And so, yeah. So,
yeah, that's interesting that's the play you think of, and that's the play when people talk about you, they often talk about. So, like, everybody in the world saw that, like, your great play that in that play. So, yeah, it's really interesting. That's the one I predicted you would say. So,
that's Monday Night Football too.
Hey, I'm going to ask one last question, but I want to put it into kind of perspective here. When we record this, we're heading into our Pop Warner Super Bowl, and by the time it airs, it'll probably be after the Super Bowl. But for a lot of these teams, they've won all year long, and they're coming in, and some of these kids and some of these teams will lose for the first time this year, or maybe in some for the first time in a long time. When I think about the Vikings and the team that you played for, I do think about that 15-1 team, and I was thinking about that earlier today, and I was like, well, I can't think of who won the Super Bowl that year, and I can't. I stopped short of trying to figure it out because, like, that's kind of the point. Like, I remember the Vikings were dominant. You were obviously part of that team. Obviously, you didn't win the Super Bowl, but as you reflect on things, it's all about like figuring out where your wins are, where your victories and successes are. Like, what can you reflect on such a dominant season that may not have gone your way, that a kid can take from and maybe give him some perspective as they close out the Pop Warner season?
Oh, wow. Well, you got to look at what you did for that year. I mean, the great year that you had, that year with our team, the bonding, and we came together. I mean, it was like there was nothing we could not do. We knew we were always going to come back and win the game. Like I said, and then I had to remind myself that we didn't get the job done. And then I went back after the fact and looked at the little things that we could have done better that would have got the job done. I mean, we had a sack fumble before half that we were up 17-3 at that point. Then we dropped back in our own end zone. We get the sack and they get the fumble, they recover, and now it changes the whole momentum of the game. We had a play, or Robert said it to us in the middle of the game. He ran out of bounds instead of staying in bounds. And then there was other little things that happened in that game. And I always said that we had a great season, and all we had to do was do those little things to finish it off, and we would have been where we would have been. But everybody looks at winning and losing, though. I mean, the team was the Atlanta Falcons that we lost to. And but in the end, I came back to it. We had one hell of a season. We set a lot of records. We just didn't get the job done in the end. And it doesn't mean you're bad for not getting it done. It's just, hey, it tells you what you need to work on. So when you're in that position again, you'll get those little things done.
Perfect. Hey, man, I really appreciate chatting today. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your time with family in Arizona, and hopefully we connect sometimes again soon.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For Pop Warner, I'm your host, Tim Glaze. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. This podcast is a production of Pop Warner Little Scholars, the premier national governing body for youth football and cheer and dance. Visit us at popwarner.com.